situation right now. So we're heading now, as we join the action here, on the Col de Bisque. That's the climb, 17 kilometres. We've still at least 10 kilometres still to climb on the mountain, and it takes us up to a maximum height of 1,700 metres. We're looking at the rear of the break of the main field. I'll just tell you the situation. About a minute and a half ahead of the Once-led peloton is Fabrizio Guidi, Francesco Cabello, Joseph Jouffre of the Relax team, Johan Horash from MSS, Jose Vicente Garcia Acosta Ibanesta with his teammate Eladio Jimenez, Oscar Pereiro of Phonak, and Gianpaolo Keula of the Vina Calderola. And if Horash can stay away till the top of this climb, then he will be the new leader in the King of the Mountains, because he was the first man over the Portelet. He was also in the breakaway and second over the Alto de Montrepos at the start of the day. At that time, though, he was just behind the leader of the King of the Mountains, Cardenas, who did not make the break. So nobody seems to be in any trouble as far as the leaderboard is concerned, because the golden jersey there of Nozal is still right at the front. We'll take a break, come back and join us on the Obisque. And welcome back, live action now on the Col d'Aubisque. That was a brief glimpse of Kurt van der Wouwer, who's moments ago just sprinted ahead of the main peloton, and already he's catching on to the skirt tails there of Jose Vicente Garcia Acosta, who's coming back from the breakaway. Two riders dropped from those original 9 now since the ascent of the Col d'Aubisque began. The other one is Francesco Cabello. Now, the best placed man in the race, Paul, in the breakaway is Oscar Pereiro.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see why. In fact, the Once team have been on the front making so much of a hard tempo, because, in fact, Pereiro is 8 minutes behind in the overall classification. We've seen Once do this many times in the past, use an awful lot of energy over the first week of the Vuelta a Espana and then literally blow to pieces. There's Benoit Joachim, one of Lance Armstrong's teammates, coming off the back. Eric Zabel. These are the formation here we're looking at now, is the Gruppetto, the riders just trying to survive and stay in the main field. But, Bob, I think once again Once really are trying to be too dominant in the race.
Well, nobody has ever accused Once of going too easy in a bike race, and probably never will. There's Jan Ruska on the front. Such an emotional and tight-knit squad that when they get a little bit of success, they seem to overcook it a lot of times. Last year in the Tour de France, I think they had won the team time trial. De Galdiano got the jersey after the first long individual time trial and kept it for 7 whole days till we got into the high mountains. And then Lance Armstrong himself made their comments seem a little bit foolish at the time. They were talking about dislodging him, attacking him at every moment. And the end of the first day, they had lost the yellow jersey already in the Tour. This year in the Vuelta, they are solid so far, dominating the race on GC up until now. They got a huge result from Isidro Nozal yesterday, and as you can see, the breakaway disintegrate under the pressure of Oscar Pereiro. One has to wonder, though, why Once feels compelled to do such a hard tempo this early in the stage and this early in the Vuelta.
Well, watching here, coming up on the outside there, the leader of the points competition at the moment.
King of the Mountains there.
Oh, King of the Mountains.
That was Cardenas. It's very confusing at the Vuelta a España, because it has to be the only bike race in the world where they actually have the jersey for the leader of the King of the Mountains, which we normally see at the Tour de France, a white jersey with red spots on. Here, in fact, that's the points competition, so that is pretty strange.
And that's Guidi, who just give us a wave. He decided to say that's his turn done in the breakaway as he falls back a little bit here. Well, if Cardenas has come up, he's flown up here, because that was the moment of joining. That's goodbye from Fabrizio. And joining at the front is the King of the Mountains. Well, that's altered the course of the leader's jersey in that competition now.
Well, the reason he had to do that was because Horace was in the leading group, and if Horace was to go over the top of this mountain in first position, well, then Cardenas would lose his lead in the King of the Mountains classification. So that really is a pretty impressive move by him, and the acceleration now by Cardenas has actually put Horace there in the lime green jersey into a spot of bother.
Yes, absolutely right, but he's recovered very quickly. So we now have 5 riders, and the breakaway strengthened by the arrival of the King of the Mountains leader, as other riders fall back, including Cabello. Now, don't forget, the weekend is up on us. We don't cover the race live at weekends, but we do bring you same-day coverage of the Vuelta a España, and our timings tomorrow, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when we'll continue in the Pyrenees, just on a 100-mile stage for you tomorrow, as we continue to the mountains. Well, this hill, the Obisque, Jose Luis Ribiera was in the early attack today, but he fell back, and it looks as though he's paying the price now because he's right at the tail of the race. Already 5 riders we know of has abandoned the race today, but Ribiera also dropping off the pace.
The best domestique in the business right there, Jose Luis Ribiera, capable of setting tempo up to 50-55 kilometers an hour on the flat parts of the race course and staying in the front group till all except the very favorites on GC are remaining. And he's done that in the Tour de France for Lance Armstrong, and he'll probably do it, if necessary, here in the Vuelta a España for Roberto Heras and now Manuel Beltran from the U.S. Postal Team.
Well, I'm a bit surprised to see him in difficulty this afternoon because he rode a very good individual time trial yesterday. Although he'd lost a bit of time in the first part of the Vuelta a España, I thought he might be riding himself higher up in the overall classification. But the pressure has really been on since the start from the yellow armada of Once. On the right-hand side, by the way, in the blue jersey there, the man who is second in the combine competition, Igor Gonzalez de Galliano. He actually wears that jersey of leadership in place of his teammate. The man who yesterday did that sterling ride in the individual time trial, Isidro Nozel, who's just behind him in the golden jersey.
I've got a feeling that Igor just came up there and asked them to just drop the tempo just a little bit. There's no point in committing suicide just yet. This is Horash, who now seems to have been dislodged from that leading group. If he'd been amongst the points at the top of the mountain, he would have pinched that leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains, but it looks as though Cardenas is going to do himself a few favours now. There were 9 leaders as they started this climb. A number have dropped off, as you can see, but there's 4 new leaders. There's 4 leaders now, including the arrival of the pink jersey. Now the counter-attacks are starting in the peloton, and it's Cofidis, surprisingly, who have now decided to launch the attacks.
Yeah, but marched there by Manuel Beltran, who was right onto the wheel of that acceleration. Now, this is really going to put the cat amongst the pigeons because they've got to follow this man. He's the best climber in the overall classification, and no response from Once.
No, I think it's Igor Gonzalez de Galliano that has to counterattack Manuel Beltran there. I think he's on the wheel of Luis Perez, who won the very first stage out on the road, stage 2. Very strong bike racer, obviously in great form, pedaled away from a hard-charging peloton, and he's just shelled Manuel Beltran. Maybe not absolutely 100% ready to make this big of an effort when we consider the rest of the race course to come. We have a huge climb after this one to the finish in Courtrai, and the Obisque is nothing to not take notice of, and nothing to laugh at. Luis Perez really making it a hard tempo, and a desperate chase coming from behind. It looks like Roberto Heras is even coming over now with maybe Michael Rasmussen from the Rabobank team.
Well, it's the first selection, this. That was Greedy, who's gone back into the pack. Happy to see the end of the day at the front, I would suspect. Perez has been anchored by 4 riders, as we can see now from the helicopter. But this has caught Once off guard, and sometimes points out perhaps not necessary to keep that fast tempo going. Now, the attack started straight after Gonzalez de Galliano told, I think it was Ruska, to ease back on the tempo. I think he wanted to see some reaction from the field. Well, he's got it.
This is Kurt van der Wouwer on the front. We'd almost forgotten about him. He'd actually launched an attack a few moments ago and got himself just off the front end of the main field. Luis Perez, the early leader of the King of the Mountains competition here, now has decided to take up the pacemaking. Another one of those riders who switched across during the course of this season from the Team Coast, which literally exploded a couple of times during the course of the season. Some of the riders stayed on board to form the brand new team, Team Bianchi, but this man decided he would move across to Team Cofidis.
And this is Rasmussen also coming up, and we've got Heras sitting right behind. This is an interesting move, this, as they come through. Just checking out the riders there. There's not a single Once man come forward with what is a very dangerous move.
Well, it's what Bob and I said earlier on, Phil. They tend to use too much energy in the first part of the race.
Well, De Olbo's got over the line here, and he's on the MSS. They've been a very strong team, and this is an interesting move, and he's put Once on the defensive, and the golden jersey should feel a little bit concerned by this. I think their team is under pressure. We'll take a break. And welcome back. The battle on the Col de Bisque of today's stage of the Vuelta a España. 56 kilometres to go and 5 kilometres still left to climb to take us up to the top of this mountain at 1,700 metres. There are changes all the time now. We've had sightings of Richard Veronk, and he's been in all sorts of trouble. And this looks as like we've got here Angel Casero Just trying to pinpoint exactly where he is, but there's a group of 20 riders forming now behind the breakaways.
Well, Angel Casero, you can see here where with motorbike number 3, that indicates he's well off the back of the serious contenders. What we have seen, though, is Felix Cardenas do an unbelievable ride. He was in the main field at the start of this climb. He rode right across the gap on his own, which was about a 1.5-minute gap, and joined the leading group, which was 7 riders. But as soon as he joined those 7 riders, the pressure that he put on really split it to complete and utter smithereens. That's the second group on the road, which is a lot more interesting. In second place there, you can almost make out a blue jersey. That is Roberto Heras. Now, he has joined this very serious group right now, and in fact, they're slowly but surely moving their way out of the small town of Guret. That's 55.5 kilometers to go right now, around about 4.5 kilometers to go to the summit.
Well, Cardenas is doing what we expect of a leader of the King of the Mountains, coming across from the peloton to the leaders and showing them how to ride. But the hard work by Perez looks to be paying off, because Pereiro and Cardenas being picked up, and it's Roberto Heras who's setting the pace now through the middle. Well, Heras takes a little while to get warmed up, but when he becomes very determined, he really can hurt the bunch. It's a good move.
These are the 3 days that he really has to consolidate the foundations if he wants to win this bike race. He's a long way down in the overall classification. In fact, he's 4.5 minutes behind the leader, Isidro Nozal. But I think more importantly for him, what he wants to do today is get time between himself and the other contenders in this bike race. There's Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano just on the left-hand shoulder there. Following them up in third place is Manuel Beltran. I can't there, in fact, still is hanging on the golden jersey of Isidro Nozal, and I never expected him to be put under difficulty quite so early on after that great time trial yesterday.
Well, as we continue the ascent here of the Obis, the leaders and the main body of the race chasing with the golden jersey still in it. It's going to be difficult, though, I can tell you. Well, don't forget, if you think riding a bike, especially on the Obisque, is hard, then try riding a bowl, because the weekend is the PBRs, the top cowboys in the world, tangle with the bowls of the real sort, weighing in at 2,000 pounds. Check out all of the action coming to you every Saturday and Sunday, and that'll be tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, only on OLN. Now, Perez started something here, and he's been quite an attraction to the race as the elite are beginning to get together. There's Cardenas sitting now at the back. He's had a very good ride. Pereiro going through, and this is now turning out to be a good move. Now that's Jouffre there. That is Joseph Jouffre, who has been in the break all day. It looks, Bob, as though he's just started to unhitch here.
A few of the riders that were in the early break have been able so far to stay on with the tempo being set by Heras and Perez. I think Jouffre is the next one to get dropped. Pereiro was in the early move, and so was the Benesto rider up there, Eladio Jimenez. But it's Felix Cardenas doing the initial damage. But now Luis Perez is back on fire, and Roberto Heras has started to come through himself in the breakaway. And they're really putting some big time into the still Once-led peloton. But as you can see, it's only a couple of them left in the front, most especially Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano in the blue jersey as the combination leader. Manuel Beltran right on his shoulder, monitoring their moves right now. Beltran tried to match the move by Luis Perez, was unable to do so, and Roberto Heras realized that it was a critical moment in this bike race, and he's jumped across now the 34 seconds. Grupo Heras, that's the front guys on the road, and they're still right behind. So solid ride being done by Luis Perez to get away from there, as well as Felix Cardenas and Roberto Heras, and we'll see just what kind of energy Once has left after making all the tempo and chasing all the breaks throughout the first week of the Vuelta. And there is Isidro Nozal in the gold jersey, the rider who won the time trial yesterday and started the day in the golden jersey, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to last in there. He started to slide down the front group there, still being set by his teammates on Once, though.
I think he's doing pretty well.
He's doing very well. He's been given a free hand right now just to try and survive. Obviously, the team leader has been designated there on the left-hand side in the blue jersey, Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. But Isidro Nozal, he's got the big advantage of having at least 4 minutes over the majority of the big contenders and the big climbers. He just has to ride his own race sensibly, not panic and blow up, because if you blow up on a big mountain like this, you can lose yourself very easily 10 minutes. The advantage for the climbers on a course like this right now is because they can attack on this first climb, which this side, by the way, is the most difficult ascension of the Col d'Aubisque. It levels off just a little bit at the top, and they climb up to go over the Soulor, which has not been given a categorization as a climb here. Then it's all the way downhill into the valley, and immediately they reach the valley floor, they start climbing again, 16 kilometers of ascension up to the finishing line in Cauterets.
Well, Galdeano on the left of our picture in that blue leaders combine jersey is also owned at the moment by Nozal, but they can't wear two. And Onse trying to get some common sense really into this chase. 23 riders here in this group. Beltran, who went forward, has fallen back into it, but we're very happy that Heras has gone up with the leaders. And they're going to concentrate now and just try and limit the escape of that breakaway, because once over the top, as Paul has said, we go on to the Soulor. Not a long, hard climb, as it's just a little hiccup in the descent, really, before we plunge into the village and then climb up towards Cauterets itself.
Carlos Sastre, 191, just at the back there. He's holding on for dear life if he can. There are a couple of Once riders sitting on at the back of this group. In fact, one of the early leaders, Joaquin Rodriguez, just at the back there. In front of him, Marcos Serrano. They're just going to try and recover, and if they can, on a climb like this, and hope that they can do something for their leaders on the next part of the race. But right now, this race is really starting to blow to pieces, and the attack, that very incredible attack by Luis Perez, set something up special for Roberto Heras. But Heras, Bob, has to attack like this on every mountain stage if he wants to win this bike race, because once he's been through these mountains, he's still facing up to another 50-kilometer individual time trial next week.
Yes, and he lost a lot of time yesterday in the flat, windy, very power-oriented time trial. He lost quite a bit of time, maybe a little bit more than he would like to, from Nozal and De Galdeano and his own teammate Manuel Beltran. But now you can see he's really setting a hard tempo. Like you said, Paul, he needs to get as much time as possible throughout these long climbs. They're up into the clouds now, and this is the terrain that Roberto Heras absolutely loves. He flies up the mountains. He's racing for himself here in the Vuelta a España. He's taken the responsibility of team leadership, and now he's set to fly.
Well, we mustn't forget that Levi Leipheimer trying to put matters to rights here in the breakaway along with his teammate, former world mountain bike champion Michael Rasmussen. It looks as though Pereiro, who's been a part of the leading group for a long time now, is beginning to yo-yo. The weather getting a little bit shady on the top. We'll take a break. And welcome back. We're looking at the leaders on the Col d'Aubisque, around about 3.5 kilometers to climb to the summit yet. We're heading up towards the base of the cloud now. And it's Luis Perez who's setting the pace. 98 there is Valverde. He's having a great tour. He's lying 10th overall. 67 was Scarponi. And there's a counter-attack now being launched here. And Leipheimer I didn't notice in the breakaway.
Well, I think he was put under a bit of pressure there when his teammate came across, because this is the real battle at the front end of the bunch right now. Everybody's really trying to blow this race apart, and you can see the weather changing a little bit in the Pyrenees here. The mist is coming down as we get up to the summit, and I remember a couple of years ago in the Tour de France coming down this descent in a very thick fog. And it is, isn't it, Bob, if you remember back to when you were racing, a rather treacherous descent, because there is nothing to protect you if you go off the road.
Oh, it's a very dangerous descent. You can see no guardrail there, and when you're doing the descent, they're in the fog. These corners come up on you so quickly. I remember the very first few descents I did, I thought I must be some sort of spastic knucklehead. I couldn't go around the corners to save my life. But I realized that these riders train and race on these roads year after year, and they had them memorized. And 2 or 3 years later, I too was a good descender, but never as fast as Sean Yates, your countryman, Paul.
Gibbs Yates, he was one of the best descenders in the world. Right now, Roberto Heras is turning out to be one of the best climbers in the world. There's the leader of the climbing competition, Felix Cardenas. Rasmussen is riding a superb race. Osa coming through now. Valverde rode across the gap here to put himself into the leading group, and that's Michele Scarponi. He's always a very good bike rider. We've seen him ride well at the Giro d'Italia, but right now he's accompanying this small group of riders who are spearheading the attack on today's stage of the Vuelta a España. I think at the back there, 67, Scarponi, he'll just be happy to sit on this group and see how it develops when we head down towards the finishing line.
Well, it's a shame it got a little bit too hot for Levi Leipheimer up there. He has gone back. Cardenas is still here. Now, this is the group of the golden jersey. And it looks to me as though, well, he's got also Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano here. The riders are really putting them under pressure. He's going to have to try and hold on here because he's not that far from the summit right now. And if he can just hang on, he's still going to be in with a chance. That's Tema Del Olmo, who's coming back now as well.
Well, they're having a hard time right now. They've lost all their teammates. It's up to the leader of the bike race overall to take responsibility of the pacemaking. There is Beltran on the far side. I thought he was going to rip the race to pieces at the start. He went away, but maybe under starter's orders from the team car, he was told to sit back and wait for Roberto Heras, and then all of a sudden, Heras took up the pacemaking. But looking back here, you can see a lot of pressure coming out of this group. Gonzalez de Galdiano, I think, not in a great day. There's Inigo Cuesta going through for Cofidis. Carlos Sastre is still there as well. And here we're looking at one of the leaders of the Milanese team, and sitting on the front there, that looks like Klaus Mola.
Yeah, this is Mola here, and also Horace is sitting at the back. Now, as we pan through here, you'll note there are not many Once riders, are there? In fact, they're left here now with just their two top men, Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano and the race leader. They've been isolated, and they know they're going to have to do all of the work here to close a minute's gap. Now, at the moment, Nozal has enough time in hand to still lead this race by the end of the day, but he's going to be put under pressure on the last climb.
The Banesto rider there, Francisco Macebo, and the defending champion, Aitor Gonzalez, there on the Fossa Bortolo team. His teammate, Dario Frigo, still in the bike race. Klaus Moller is in 4th overall right now. He's having a great Vuelta a Espana. But Carlos Sastre also hanging tough there. This is going to be our GC contenders as we go on. I think that Aitor Gonzalez will continue to feel good, better and better as we go along. He also has a very solid teammate, Dario Frigo, there to help him out if he needs it. And Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano, as well as Isidro Nozal. Nozal was at the front of this group doing the tempo now. So I think he's switched over from race leader to domestique for Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. And they are in a world of hurt because half of the race, half of the GC contenders have gone up the road. They are being led now by 1 minute and 4 seconds as we go over the top by Roberto Heras of the U.S. Postal Team.
Yes, our camera's switching back a bit late there because we can't quite see in the mist who's gone over there in first place, but Cardenas was in the mix, that's for sure. Scarponi happily just staying with the group now as the descent goes down. Now, we're going to wait and see what the time gap is, of course, for Nozal, but I think he's going to be very pleased with his climb here. His teammates have done their job well, and they've kept him in a position to keep his golden jersey. Here he is as he continues to climb to the summit. Shouldn't be much more than a minute, I don't think. It'll depend what happens on the long way down now with the little hiccup of the Col de Soulor in between before we get on to the final climb of the day. The clock counting here, this is what they call an especial or all category climb here on today's stage. The first big mountain of the Tour, the Col de Bisque. 1,700 metres, just over 10 miles all the way uphill. And this man who apparently said to a friend of ours, Graham Jones, last night, he said, I ride on the mountain, he said, if I attack on the mountains, a snail would follow me.
Well, he's riding pretty well. He's actually riding very courageously right now because he probably knows in the back of his mind he's not one of the great climbers of the world, but almost certainly he's going to try and have to recover if he can.
1 minute and 5, 1 minute and 10 seconds now. The riders are getting close to the top that are chasing Roberto Heras, but it's Nozal that's leading, and he's doing a good job to stay that close.
Well, we just apologise for the loss of pictures at the moment because our satellite seems to be giving us a problem high above the riders, but at least we've seen them go over the top of the Col de Bisque. We should get matters to right shortly. It's outside of our control. We'll work on it. And as we look at the current overall situation in the race, we'll take a break and we'll get in touch with the man that owns the satellite and get the pictures back. There they are. We're back. But we'll take a break. See you in a moment. Well, we're looking at pictures here of what is the top of Cotteret, where the riders, we hope, will shortly be arriving. Welcome back to our coverage of the Vuelta a España. We will get pictures back. It's outside our control. Pictures are down all over Europe, and it's because probably of those bad weather conditions on top of the Col de Bisque. But let me remind you what has happened so far. I think we can say, Paul, that this man has had a very first big rendezvous and has come through it pretty well.
He's come through it pretty well. He's riding a good defensive race. In fact, he seems to be doing a lot better than the team leader, Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. He realises after that very difficult time trial that he put in yesterday, Phil, that he really does have to do something special if he wants to keep the lead. The most important thing, though, for Isidro Nozal is not to panic at all, because if he doesn't panic, he's got a very good chance of keeping hold. But fortunately, we are able to get back to the live pictures. This, you can see, looked very quickly at a brief glimpse there that looks as if we're looking at the King of the Mountains leader there, Felix Cardenas. This is the descent off the summit of the Col d'Aubisque. It's an unbelievable descent. It is very, very dangerous indeed. The rest of the group are just round the corner there, the group that contains Roberto Heras. And fortunately, the gods of cycling have been with us this afternoon, because after that dramatic loss of pictures, we are now back live on the roads of the Vuelta a Espana.
And this is a little bit of a problem for Cardenas here. He's obviously a nervous man on the way down because he's dropped back. You can see how narrow this road is on the descent, indicating how dangerous it can be. Although the weather visibility is down, Bob, we're getting below the cloud line again now. It should improve.
The clouds have lifted a little bit, and we were speaking about this just moments ago when the riders were still on the climb, how sketchy this descent is. It's very torturous, it's very serpentine, and there is no guardrail there at all, and it doesn't forgive mistakes at all. If you go off the side of this road, you are not going to be liking that at all. So the riders hopefully won't take too many chances. The riders in the front can take their time, get down nice and easy. Felix Cardenas, a fantastic Colombian climber, won a stage in the Tour de France a couple of years ago. A beautiful ride up above Aix-les-Thermes. And here is the chasers there from the peloton, I would imagine.
No, this is Scarponi. These are the leaders. We've managed to get to them, I think, because that's Scarponi sat there at the back. He was over the top with the leaders.
Brief explanation there why we lost the signal. In fact, the reason for it was there was an electrical outage at the top of the climb. During the race like this, they actually have transponders at the top of all the mountains, and the transponders are powered by generators, and there must have been a slight problem there. So fortunately, we've got it all sorted out, and we're back live on the roads of the Vuelta a Espana, and it's good to see this descent. This is a sketchy descent, as Bob puts it. I tell you what, if you make one mistake on this descent, the drop-off there can be as much as 500 or 600 meters.
I don't think we want to know that right now, Paul. 1 minute and 7 seconds is the gap. These are the leaders. Just behind us is Cardenas, the peloton racing down as well. So don't forget, let me remind you yet again, the weekend is upon us. Same-day coverage coming tomorrow on the Tour of Spain. Next 2 days are tough ones indeed. An hour and a half of coverage tomorrow, Eastern time, of course, from 3 p.m. to 4:30. We're on to the Pla de Beret, and it's 166 kilometres as we stay here in the Pyrenees. Right now, this is going to be a test of courage and nerve for the riders as they pass through these tunnels. Of course, we can't go in with the cameras, otherwise we certainly would guarantee loss of pictures.
Certainly would. There's the time gap right now, 1 minute and 6 seconds as they go into the tunnel there. We're hoping for a bit of stabilization of these pictures. This is the group of Aitor Gonzalez, last year's winner. It's also the group of the yellow jersey Isidro Nozal, who is still keeping hold of that leadership. We look back here, we can see the leader, Felix Cardenas, taking some unbelievable risks right now, trying to get himself back up to the leading group.
Yes, a nervous descender, but it's all paid off, because I think the bunch themselves, the break themselves, not too happy with this descent either. A little bit of a rejoin here for the King of the Mountains leader, as he'll be happy to be latching on there. The conditions with the leads are in, and somebody's gone wide and fallen there. As we look, we'll catch up with that a little bit later on. That's what happened. He fell off. He's back. We'll take a break. And welcome now to more gentle slopes of the Col de Soulor, as we are about 43 kilometres from the line. We're looking at last year's winner of the Tour of Spain, Aitor Gonzalez. He was momentarily with Jouffre, but Jouffre was coming back from the break, and Aitor is hoping to go forward to the break.
Very brave move by this man, who, let's not forget, is the defending champion. He wants to ride himself back into the race. You see, he's actually left Jouffre behind, the relaxed Colcheron rider. He's being picked up by the incredible piece of work that's being done there by Isidro Nozal, sitting on the front of this group with Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano right on his wheel.
That's very good riding by this golden jersey, Bob. I think this young man here has really matured in just 48 hours of cycling.
Well, he must have been exaggerating about his snail's pace on the climbs, because there's only about 15 guys left in the bike race at the front, and he's right there at the front of the second group, chasing the breakaways very hard, and some of the best climbers in the world.
Actually, no, you know what, Bob? I think they've got some pretty fast snails in the Pyrenees.
They must be flyers, I'll tell you. This is Pereiro. He was also coming backwards. He seems to have found a second wind with the arrival of Aitor Gonzalez. We still have the other riders up front here: Cardenas, Heras, Perez, Scarponi, Rasmussen, Valverde and Aitor Oza. They are the leaders. Now, is this man trying a little bit? I thought for a moment there he's trying to attack. It was the camera angle.
Right now we're in between the two climbs. We've just been over the summit of the Col d'Aubisque. This is the descent and false flat which takes the riders up to the Col de Soulor, and then they begin the real descent in earnest down into the valley floor below and line themselves up for a very difficult 16-kilometre ascent of the climb up to Cotteret. But this man, he really is riding like a man possessed right now. Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano, he's the second man in the overall classification, almost 2.5 minutes down on his teammate here, but his teammate really does seem to have the legs this afternoon.
His teammate appears to be riding, the race leader appears to be riding for his team captain, DGG.
I'd have to agree with that, and we'll have to see how he does on the last climb of the day up to Cotteret. Here comes Gonzalez de Galdiano coming through. Perhaps they're working together to try to limit their losses and see if they can survive on to the finish line. In the front of the bike race, Roberto Heras and Luis Perez are setting a blistering tempo on all these climbs. And we saw Felix Cardenas, the leader, the king of the mountains, go flying off the road on that very tricky descent. That was near the top. He must have done a daredevil maneuver to get back into the break, to get up before the group caught him, because it was only about a minute 10, a minute 15 at the last check we had. So Felix Cardenas, not only a good climber, but a great descender as well. One little slip, though, but this is a very dangerous descent.
Just kicking up here now towards the Soulor, and I tell you what, this group will be breathing for the descent, which will shortly come up. There they go. They've pulled back Aitor Gonzalez back into the fold, and most of that work was done there by Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano and Isidro Nozal.
Well, they've brought him back, and that doesn't all well, because Heras is still up front and with the most to gain today on his favourite terrain. Well, let's not forget, if you're missing any stages of the Vuelta Espana, you can always catch up with us every Thursday night with the latest insights. OLN's Summer Sports Zone features highlights, news, results, all the best in bike racing, including mountain biking, and that will come to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time. Now then, the peloton is still up and down, around 25 riders working out what they can do with the 7 leaders. The gap is not sensational yet. Once over the top of the climb of the Col de Soulor, which in itself is not a major climb, there's no King of the Mountains points, then they'll go down towards the rendezvous with the final climb of the day. So every reason for the rider in the golden jersey to work like this, because he has a real chance now of staying in the mountains and in yellow for a 4th day.
It's actually quite interesting to note here, Bob, there are a lot of riders in this group that are chasing who've also got a chance of finishing high up in the overall classification, but they're actually doing nothing at all to help the Once riders. And I often think that Once have been so dominant on the home scene for many, many years that they actually don't have a lot of friends in the main field, and that's something that you must always remember, isn't it, in the sport of professional cycling. Never make enemies, because one day or another you're going to need a helping hand.
Yes, absolutely. Nobody to help and everybody to attack. The moment it looked like the Once team was a little bit off their best game on the slopes of the Aubisque. It was 6 riders taking turns, attacking them, taking pot shots at the Once team as the Domestiques fell off the pace. Now it's just 2 Once riders left in the front group, Nozal and de Galdiano. No one willing to help them. Aitor Gonzalez attacking them, trying to get across to the breakaway. He was unable to do that. And here's Michele Scarponi and Michael Rasmussen at the front of the whole bike race. Once will have to do all the work to chase them. No friends, but plenty of enemies. But they have a very solid, tight-knit organization, and they really work hard for each other. So we'll see. This is a real battle here on the first day in the Pyrenees. We knew it was going to be a great stage, and the fog is contributing even more drama. A few crashes, lots of attacks. This is great bike racing.
Well, I think actually there's very good weather on the Aubisque, unusually so. 58 seconds it is between Heras, the winner of a couple of years ago, and the leader of the race this time around. but normally visibility up here can be down to 0. And at the moment the sun is out at the finishing line in Cotteret, although the wind is gathering in strength, so it should be quite a pleasant arrival there once the riders get up from the dizzy heights of 1700 metres. As they now head down, 7 riders lead by less than a minute, with one more climb of note still to come. We'll be back. And welcome back. This is the second group on the road. Latest time check we've had is 51 seconds now between the golden jersey group, which does seem to be gaining a little bit in size, and the 7 men out in front, which contains big danger man Roberto Heras with the most to gain. One's getting the feeling, Paul, that this group might catch up.
Well, they might do. We're looking up here at a 20-kilometre descent for this second group of riders, and they do have the ability to pull back some of their 1 minute's deficit, and I have a feeling they are taking some serious risks on the front end of this main field. But Bob, it really is, isn't it, going to put them under pressure right now to try and pull back that group. But I think if they do catch him, Roberto Heras must go again, because if he wants to win the Vuelta a Espana for a second time, he has to attack on every mountain stage and build himself up a big buffer before we go through to the next individual time trial. It's the only way to win for him, to go out on the attack from a long way from the finish.
Well, back up to the leaders here. That's Scarponi tacked onto the back of it, along with Michael Rasmussen and Luis Perez. Luis Perez so strong on the flats and the climbs, not a great descender, but Roberto Heras was very good on that descent. He was leading the breakaway. They've lost a few seconds now under the impetus of the Once team that's chasing. There's Heras getting tacked onto the back now. If they don't catch, if the group doesn't catch the breakaway, 34.3 kilometers to the finish line in the little town of Aren, and there's Valverde on the back there, Osa, Cardenas, Rasmussen, Scarponi, and Luis Perez. This is a very solid breakaway. All of these riders have a lot to gain on GC if that break stays away. But look at the chase, furious from behind by the Once teams. It will be interesting to see who's leading this chase right here, but it wouldn't surprise me. It was both Luis Jerez and Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano chasing very hard. They are not very far behind the breakaway at this moment.
Well, Aren is about 12 kilometers away from Argelès, and Argelès is the start of the climb up towards the finishing town of Cotteret. The speed here in this second group on the road is absolutely phenomenal. It's around about 55-60 kilometers an hour. It'll be interesting when we go back up to the leading group to see just exactly whether or not they are all working together. Dario Frigo there going to the back of the group. In this group, his teammate Aitor Gonzalez. They seem to be bunching up just a little bit now as they try to get themselves organized on the front end. The organization and the work will only be done by the Once riders, and all these riders right now in the flat part just before we get to the next climb, Bob, they want to get on board as much drink and food as they can.
Yes, absolutely. This is the moment right now in the bike race to take a sip of water, to have a bite of food if you need it, because the last climb is very long, very arduous, and the riders in that group were really making some good progress until they got down to the valley floor, and now it seems to have fallen apart a little bit. David Echevarria, who did so much work for his teammate when they won the stage just a few days ago, and he's coming back. That was Unai Echevarria getting the stage, but this man doing a lot of the work. The breakaway still functioning well together. Luis Perez, I'm sure, is going to be up in the front doing huge pulls. He's so very strong, and they have bunched up a little bit in the chase right now. The Once riders are going to have to take the responsibility for that. They're leading the bike race. They have the first 2 places on GC, and sure enough, it's Isidro Nozal doing the tempo now, trying to get across. This is a good chance for him to close the deficit down to the leaders. If it regroups before the last climb, that will be a big advantage for the Once teams. Then they can take a look at the other riders around them. But Heras is going to have to go again and go flat out to the finish line. This is a really hard stage in the Vuelta. They've been going hard throughout the day. Once setting a furious pace. Now just a few guys left at the front, and the pressure is still on.
Well, 20 miles to go. There's no doubt now, looking here at Isidro Nozal, that he's working for his teammate and not to keep the race lead for himself, although he should manage to achieve that if he doesn't blow rather spectacularly on the climb up to the finish today, because he certainly put a lot of personal effort into this chase, and that's a bit of a surprise. There's Cardenas. He took that rather nasty-looking tumble, but doesn't appear to be marked at all from the crash. He got back well, and he's now in control. The breakaway, in case you were just joining, oh, well, there they are on cue. Heras, Perez, Scarponi, Aitor Oza is the man in the break. Valverde starting the day 10th. Cardenas, the king of the mountains, and Rasmussen, the mountain biker, on the Rabobank team. They are the trendsetters. Heras, I think, is the most significant rider. It's been a big effort by Roberto. He saw his chance. He took it. and he'll be a little disappointed at the moment. It's not working out for him.
I have to agree with you, Phil. The comment you made earlier, I can see Isidro Nozal here is completely and utterly sacrificing himself for his team leader here, Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. He actually, strangely enough, has a 2.5 minute advantage over his teammate, and he may well see that all disappear on the final climb of the day, because let's not forget, the stage today finishes with a 16-kilometre or 10-mile climb up to the finish in Cotteret, and the race is certainly far from over. It can completely change on that final climb, and it's a very steep climb as well. Although the average for the final climb of the day is only around about 5%, the last 5 kilometres kick up very steeply, and the average over the last 5 kilometres is the 10% maximum gradient part. So, you know, we are looking at what is going to be a very decisive climb.
Well, I think so, because it'll be a case of what strength have you got left here, and the strongest man obviously is going to get away from this group. And these 7 men, I'm just looking down at the names, they're really no one from the original breakaway has now survived. They've all been blasted out the back since Perez launched the attack from the peloton, and these men built around him. But Heras is playing a card. Beltran was here and fell back. He's now in the group behind, so I don't think there's a shift of leadership on the US Postal team, but there's no doubt now that they're banking on Gonzalez de Galdiano as the possible winner from the Once team on the occasion when Nozal does lose his race lead. I think he will, but I don't think he's going to lose it today unless there's a spectacular bang out in the Pyrenees from those 2 legs. Just look at this leader. You'd never drive like this unless you're working for somebody else on the squad. The leader is usually the protected man. Echevarria there, getting food down him as quick as he can before the final assault of the day. We're not going to miss any of it, of course. We'll take a short break. Rejoin us as the Battle of the Pyrenees continues. And welcome back, and the bridge is not long away now, because the last time check we got between the golden jersey group, and he's doing all of the work, and the 7 leaders is 20 seconds.
This is an unbelievable chase down here right now, because this race is completely turning upside down. I had a feeling that the group of 7 riders was going to stay clear all the way down this descent, but the work that was done by Isidro Nozal is absolutely phenomenal. He's done the majority of the pacemaking on the front end, and I have a funny feeling here right now that we're seeing a complete change, Bob, in the physiology of this bike race.
Well, here is Osa and Rasmussen, who got dropped somehow from the lead group on a flat road. They must have been dinking around with each other or going back for bottles. The front guys are not waiting at all, and they're trying to get caught up. Right behind is Isidro Nozal chasing these 2 who were in the front. Now they've been dropped somehow. We don't know exactly how that happened, but Once now driving hard.
This is Aitor Osa here, and I must say that if you had any sense now, you might sit up and have a little bit of a rest, because the main chase is not that far behind.
In fact, it's all come back together right now.
Well, we never saw it if it did. That's Cardenas at the back.
It happened in the confusion just a few moments ago. Cardenas is at the back of the group right now. We've seen the counter-attack going off the front. There is Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. They have done exactly what they wanted to do here right now. And here's confirmation of the climb to the summit of the Obisque.
So the riders over the top of the Obisque, the winner Felix Cardenas and Luis Perez, who started the attack in 2nd, Roberto Heras getting over in 3rd, Michael Rasmussen and Aitor Osa. So as we're looking now at the riders here, still trying to hang on to their lead, and I misjudged this. I thought they were coming back to the field, but they're the only 2 survivors now of the original 7 riders, Aitor Osa and Michael Rasmussen. They might be allowed a little bit of a lead here as they head towards the last climb of the day. Now, don't forget, if you are looking for something to watch at 10 p.m. in the evening, OLN at 10 brings you the latest shows of the network. And that's Monday through Wednesday. And you can see shows like Beach Ambush, a very popular program on OLN, Bragging Rights, Mysterious Encounters and Outdoor Outtakes. And the new lineup will begin on September the 29th at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. Now, a good chance here. Rasmussen, who hasn't won a race at all since he scored a stage of the Tour of Burgos back in August last year, is due something big, because he is not a rider who should not be off the winners list. He's a darn good cyclist and the world champion in the cross country of mountain biking back in 1999.
A very good bike rider, just following along with many other mountain bikers who have actually decided to make the switch across to road racing, and it really is quite remarkable how they've managed to make the change. Rasmussen here 28 seconds ahead of the group, which now contains the leader of the bike race, Isidro Nozal. They were very worried about the presence of Roberto Heras, and I wonder now, Bob, when we come up to the final climb of the day, if we might see a move come from Manuel Beltran, because he has had to do nothing at all in the breakaway behind. He sat there and forced the two Once riders to do the pacemaking, and he might have the legs for the final ascent.
He might indeed have the legs. He did try to attack on the Obese, was brought back immediately by Nozal and De Galdiano, who are chasing now hard. They did. Nozal did an amazing chase of the breakaway. He took a minute plus out of them on the descent and the flat roads across the valley before the last climb. And these riders broke away from the breakaway just before they were caught. We never saw the juncture being made. Somehow the TV cameras missed that. But be that as it may, these two riders then went ahead. They've got now almost a 30-second lead, so that's a big little effort there of Rasmussen and Osa. And looks like either riders are chasing on here from the climb to get back into the main body of the front group, or they've gone up the road. We don't know right now where the helicopter is stationed, but it looks like that might be the lead group right there.
Yeah, it's the Golden Jersey group, but they really want to hunt down Osa, I think. He's just under 6 minutes behind the Golden Jersey, but if he gets away, he'll scurry up that climb to the finish. Rasmussen perhaps not quite as important, although at the moment he holds a very high position in the overall, a couple of places above, in fact. Now, looking back here, looks like Vladimiro Belli there was at the team car. He's a man who you never pick out or spot, and yet he's never far away from the action, is he?
He's a great bike rider, and rather sadly, he was booted out of the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago for punching a spectator block right on the nose, and it was at the summit of a big mountain when everybody was getting harassed by the Simone hooligans. And I thought it was a very unfair decision, because those bike riders have been under so much pressure. And in fact, Bob, it was a fairly well-placed punch, wasn't it?
It was a great swing at that guy's head, and it got him right on the chopper. It was a good swing. I think they should have given him at least a time bonus for that, not kick him out of the bike race. But he went home, and he was in 4th place overall. He lost a lot of UCI points for that one maneuver, but I thought that he was justified, because in this day and age, you have no idea what the fans are capable of. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if they had been imbibing a little bit back in alien style on the top of that climb.
No,
so they were jumping up and down
that
in front of the riders for many days, and Billy had enough, and pow. But he went home, and Simone went on to win that Giro.
Indeed. 12th place overall there for Osa. And getting down to the job in hand here to try and swing, because iBenesto.com is a team that is quite feared by the rest of this race. They had a great team time trial to finish 3rd. Big improvement on last year when they'd only finished in 7th place, and very important for them now because they have a number of cards they can play. And remember, like Once, it's goodbye to the peloton for iBenesto this year. We're all very sad about that, and they have so many good cyclists. I'm sure they'll spread themselves around the teams in the closed season. Rasmussen continues to develop, even though he's now 29 years of age. They've got a measurable time gap of more than 30 seconds now, because the Shimano neutral service car has been called into play. That's a good sign as we head towards the finishing Cotteret. We're about 25 kilometres or so to go. We'll take another break, rejoin us, and we'll see how they're getting on. And welcome back with just on 18 kilometres to go. Now 10 of those kilometres will take us up to the finishing line in Cotteret, today's stage of the Tour of Spain. We're looking at the Once team. Some of the helpers have got back into the group now, which is getting a lot bigger. This is the Golden Jersey group at 20 kilometres to go, a minute and 40 seconds behind the two leaders, Aitor Osa, Michael Rasmussen. They're saying 57.90, exactly 1.5 minutes here. And there are 6 riders in between. We know some of the names in that group. Paul Carlos Garcia is there for Kelme, Inigo Cuesta and Cardenas.
It's going to change an awful lot more on the final climb of the day, because we're looking at a very difficult ascension up here to Cotteret. It's a long climb, 16 kilometres in total, so we're not too far away from the start of the climb here right now. Not steep all of the way. It's an average of about 5%, but certainly it does kick up very rapidly towards the end. And unfortunately there for Roberto Heras, I think he tried to play his card very early on, and I was quite surprised to see him get caught on that descent. These are the two leaders now, Aitor Osa and Michael Rasmussen. They lead the chasing group by around about 40 seconds, then a further 50 seconds back to the main field, which basically contains all of the general contenders for the win here at the Vuelta.
See the face there on Aitor Osa, because this is a real chance for him here now to get it away. Rasmussen also on for a chance of a good performance. He's got the rainbow stripes on the sleeves of his racing jersey, indicating his World Mountain Bike Championship back in 1999. He can wear those for the rest of his career. And working well together, these two now. They've been given their chance, because some of the favourites today have tried. It hasn't worked out. And so they may allow these two a little bit more leeway than they would allow Roberto Heras. 53 seconds was the last gap we had to 6 chasers, and a minute 40. That was the 20 kilometres to go. And there's a chance, because Osa is a really good climber. This is the second group, so Scarponi, oh, here they come. In fact, this is Gonzalez in here now, sitting on the front, and Cuesta, Gorka Gonzalez of Euskaltel, Piepoli, Garcia and Cardenas is the new composition. So really, this is a complete new break, and somehow Cardenas has had the strength to go with this move as well.
Craig Byron, he wants to try and build a big lead in his King of the Mountains quest here this afternoon, and that's why he looked for the move on the Col de l'Aubisque. He actually jumped away from the main group, joined the leading group, was caught just before the summit, but still managed to get himself maximum points. We're now coming into the small town, which will be not far away from the start of the ascension here, up towards the summit of the climb of Cotteret, and these two riders are still working very well together. It's a nice moment to remind ourselves of the great battle they've had over the last couple of years, Once versus Banesto. And if you look at the statistics, in fact, Once have won the Vuelta a España on 4 occasions, with Melchior Mauri back in 91, then Laurent Jalabert twice with Alex Zülle. Banesto, surprisingly enough, have only won it on 1 occasion, and that was with Abraham Olano.
Yes, well, either side have got the men on board this time around. There's a little drink, and that's illegal, because we're inside 20 kilometres to go, so I think you find himself on the list of fines tonight when we come out. But even so, he's done his job. He's got the drink across to the rider, and what anything Banesto can do, Kelme can do. No, he's just gone for a quick word. Now the clock is running at 17 kilometres to go. That's the banner down the road there, and I think the gap is actually beginning to open. It was 53 seconds on this group of 6 at 20 to go, so it's going to be interesting the next check. So the rider's heading now towards here's the check coming up, and it's the banner. There's the banner, and 1:10. The clock is stopping. It's also a special sprint point at Pierfit Nestela. 1 minute 10 seconds. So they're still going up, Paul.
They're still going up, still increasing their advantage. That's Leonardo Pipoli on the back. He's a man who's been a very good climber, but I tell you what, the main field have picked up the pacemaking too, because a few moments ago they were about 50 seconds behind that chasing group, but right now they are right on their coattails as they go through the intermediary sprint point as well. A minute and a half down, but not that far behind the chase group, who are in second position on the road. There's Vicente Belda moving up there in the team car of Kelme. He'll be very happy to have somebody in the breakaway. Let's not forget that Kelme, despite their ups and downs and their difficulty with budgetary constraints, are the professional team that have been in the sport for the longest. I think 25 years their sponsorship. That's remarkable.
They had an absolutely phenomenal Vuelta a España last year. They got the win. They got 4 stages, 3 by Aitor Gonzalez himself. The helmets have come off. We're on a finishing climb, so the riders are allowed that. The gap is staying about the same to the 2 leaders, but the small group in between are about to get swept up. This is a huge effort that Rasmussen and Osa put on it during the flat portion before this last climb. Kelme going back had a win with Botero and Aitor Gonzalez, 2 athletes that they lost in the offseason. They did too good and had to change teams because there's much more money elsewhere. But Kelme looking good for next year. 2 of the biggest Spanish teams are going away, Once and Banesto, so I'm sure some of those riders will filter back onto the Kelme team, and they might have another fabulous year. Oscar Sevilla is still in the front group. He's not having a great Tour of Spain so far, but he could rectify things with a good performance today or the next couple of days as we stay in the Pyrenees for 3 full days.
And the clock starts at 15 to go for the 2 leaders, who are still pulling away. I think there's every chance, though, that the golden jersey group is going to wipe out those 6 chasers pretty soon now. They're only 20 seconds in front, but we're about to start the climb very soon. We're into the gorges now, and then we'll kick up the mountain for the last 10 kilometres.
Cardenas, he
Look at
wants to
him
go. He wants to get maximum points if he can here. This is his kind of climb here. Looking over his shoulders, he can see the shadow there. On the back end of this group is Leonardo Pipoli. Pipoli is a brilliant climber and has won a lot of the big climbing trophies in Spain over the last couple of years. But you know what? Looking a bit further back down the road there, you can see the main field has recovered. They've ridden a very good tactical race, actually, Once, although they were put into a bit of bother on the first slopes of the Col de l'Aubisque. They didn't panic at all, and they've actually kept themselves in control of this bike race. But I feel certain when we get up to the steeper part of this climb, we will see another move coming from Roberto Heras. He has to attack on every possible occasion in the mountains because his time trialing ability is far inferior to that of González de Galdeano.
Well, Gorka González is the man hurting at the moment at the front, and in fact it looks as though they put Inigo Cuesta in trouble at 1 minute and 11 seconds, so they are still riding very strongly, those two riders at the front. There's Cuesta now, been detached from that breakaway of 6. They've added just a single second on the last time check. Oh, but here comes the cavalry, and they've closed in a lot. 1:26 now to the green jersey, the golden jersey rather, of the race at 1:26. So I think they're going to wipe out those 6 riders pretty soon on the climb up to Courtrai, and then it'll be 2 riders versus the rest. And well, it looks like turning out to be another golden day for the race leader. We'll take a break. And welcome back. Familiar roads here in France for those that have ridden the Tour de France as they now head up towards the finish here in Courtrai of this year's Tour of Spain. Once are pulling this race back together again with some fine team riding. They may have lost some of their domestiques on the climb of the Obese, but they've come back well, and now they've taken up their role very, very effectively indeed. 2 riders out in front still. Osa, at Aitor Osa and Michael Rasmussen, being chased by Felix Cardenas, Leonardo Pipoli, Gorka González and Carlos Garcia. And then we come back to the golden jersey group here, and it looks as though he's going to hang on.
Well, they're just catching that group that's caught in the middle there. There's not very much distance between, and I maybe shouldn't have been quite so critical about Team Once before, because they seem to have recovered. They seem to have swelled in numbers in this group of the yellow jersey and, of course, of the blue jersey on the shoulders of Igor González de Galdeano. The time difference, 1 minute and 24 seconds. But still, Bob, to me, they seem to be putting an awful lot of pressure into chasing everybody down here, when maybe they should not forget that the Vuelta a Espana is a 3-week bike race. Well, they've caught that group there right now. Felix Cardenas back in the fold with Leonardo Pipoli, but the first part of this climb would suit the strength of the Once riders, because for around about 10 kilometers or so, it doesn't really get very much more than 3 or 4%.
Well, this is a split here, and this is Aitor Osa, and I'm very surprised to see it's Rasmussen who's turned the screw and got rid of the Spanish climber.
Well, that is a surprise.
Incredible effort by Michael Rasmussen, who seemed to be making the most tempo during the breakaway across the flats. Very strong day. He is having a great day on the roads, and he's dropped one of the best climbers of this race, last year's King of the Mountain, Aitor Osa. Michael Rasmussen is flying up this hill. He is even increasing his lead. The Once riders now have caught the small breakaway that was in between Osa and Rasmussen. So at this point in the bike race, one wonders why they don't shut things down a little bit, not quite make such a hard tempo. Michael Rasmussen way down on GC, and so is Aitor Osa. Aitor Osa 6 minutes, 10 seconds behind. I don't think they need to chase quite this hard. And Kelme's now come to the front again. That looks like Jose Enrique Gutierrez making the tempo right in front of the remnants of the Once riders. Only one Once rider besides De Galdeano and Nozal left now in the front. The other have fallen away, but what a great effort by the Once team to try to defend this lead of Isidro Nozal.
Well, hats off to also Michael Rasmussen, over 7 minutes behind. He had a poor time trial yesterday. He is not a wanted man from the other riders in the race here. If they pull back Osa, he might pull off the biggest win of his life.
Well, if he did, that would be quite remarkable, because we knew him as a mountain biker, a world champion mountain biker. He raced in a mountain bike stage race in the Tour de Hawaii a couple of years ago. 12 kilometers to go to the summit right now, and the road is starting to kick in. This is Perez once again going out on the attack. It looks as if everybody now is looking for their free ticket to get off the front, and Heras, I think, is trying again.
Well, at 12 kilometres to go, the situation was Rasmussen at 3 seconds, Aitor Osa, the golden jersey group rather, at a minute and 15. Now there is a split trying to be repaired, and again Perez, who started all the problems on the mountain, has gone, but latching on the back with a fine pair of legs. It looked to me like it was possibly the golden jersey.
And Beltran as well. Beltran was the man just coming in there. He was the man who set the race on fire by moving across on the start of the Col de l'Aubisque, and he's tried to go clear again here. But what a great move by the leader of this bike race. 26 there, Isidro Nozal. He knew he had to mark this man from US Postal, and it looks very much as if Gutierrez has said bye-bye, thanks very much.
Well, where is this man, Isidro Nozal, getting his strength from? These past 2 days, he's been a mountain of a bike rider. We've seen how much energy he's thrown away when he came over the Aubisque. We, I think, understandably thought he was setting everything up for González de Galdeano, his team captain, but now he's got up here with Beltran and Perez. A good move by Beltran because Heras played his card, it didn't work. Now, third place overall in the race is Beltran, and well marked Nozal because he's the nearest non-teammate to him in the classification.
Beltran third overall at the start of today after a very good sound time trial yesterday. Johan Bruneel said 2 men did the rides in the time trial yesterday. One was Isidro Nozal. That's no surprise at all to everybody. But the surprise to Johan Bruneel was the performance of his own man, Manuel Beltran, almost catching Roberto Heras and moving himself up into third place in the overall classification. But you know what? This race is far from over here this afternoon.
Well, that looks like a Kelme rider throwing his weight into the attack down there at the moment. And this is quite amazing, Bob, but there's so many guys in this race believe they still are in with a shout.
Oh, absolutely. So many riders still with a good chance. Let's see who from this group can bridge across to our leaders. Nozal is in there, so it's time to go. If you have the legs, you have got to get across to the race leader on the last climb of the day.
Well, I don't see Oscar Sevilla making the move, but this is again Kelme on the attack, so Carlos Garcia possibly.
Well, it is Sevilla. He was in second place there. His teammate had actually set him up, which is quite remarkable because for the last few days he's actually been struggling at the back of every group whenever we've got uphill. But let's never forget that he was the best young rider in the Tour de France. He's full of qualities, but let's not forget this man either because he's doing a magnificent ride right now. This is Sevilla on the right.
Well, Oscar Sevilla is sensing everybody who is attacking, and he's having a little go himself. Oscar Sevilla lost a lot of time yesterday. This will give him some confidence, I think, to be able to attack on the last climb on the first day in the Pyrenees. 7:26 behind overall, 30th place in the race. It's not the place he expects to be, but he is out of form.
Well, he's actually possibly going to ride himself into form during this race. There was actually a photograph in the newspapers this morning. Oh, the golden jersey's in difficulty.
Well, it had to happen. He's reading the race perfectly, but you've got to keep the legs all the way to the finishing line, and Nozal is now in trouble. Now, all the work he did for González de Galdeano, perhaps this is where that man should come forward. I'm not sure he can. Beltran is stealing a march, and let's remember too that Beltran overall is at 2 minutes and 42 seconds of the leader's jersey.
This is a fantastic effort by Nozal. He's made a huge effort to get across to Perez and Beltran. Maybe a little bit of overexcitement getting to him there. If he can get back within himself and ride a steady tempo to the finish line, he can retain his at least his jersey. He's going to lose some time now to Perez and Beltran. Beltran doing a great ride. We have to see Igor González de Galdeano make a big move now. The whole team has been working for him throughout the first week and throughout the day, and you have to honor the efforts of the race leader when Isidro Nozal is making all the tempo across the flats. It is the job of Igor González de Galdeano right now to make a move all the way to the finish and not let Manuel Beltran, who's only 15 seconds behind de Galdeano, get too far up the road.
Well, it's a big play this now, and it's gone very well for US Postal. This is the leader. Nobody really worried about Michael Rasmussen just yet. He's not a threat to the destiny of the golden jersey. He's going under 9 kilometers to go now. So it's climbing all the way to the line. Rasmussen in with a shout of winning the biggest race of his career since he left the world of mountain biking. But there's still an awful lot of action coming from the rear. And this man is at last in trouble. And welcome back. We're now within 7 kilometres to go to the finish, and Oscar Sevilla is flying up the hillside. Well, he was. He's being swept up now by the golden jersey, who was with him. He was sent back to the group. Sevilla is back in, but in front of this group by about 25 seconds is Luis Perez and Manuel Beltran. And then, of course, the leader on the road is Rasmussen. And we think that Aitor Gonzalez is still clear as well.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, it's very easy to sit here in a commentary position and say they've only done the easy part of the climb so far, but looking at the gradients, in around about a kilometre's time, the race will really start to kick up and the gradient will bite because it goes up to 10%. You can almost feel it right now for Michael Rasmussen. He's out of the saddle, trying to keep the tempo as high as possible. But everybody has thrown caution to the wind this afternoon, as has Manuel Beltran here. I think he's basically just waiting for the road to kick him and come just that little bit steeper. Luis Perez, I think, has ridden a brilliant Vuelta a Espana so far, but the kilometres for the moment are ticking by for Rasmussen. But Bob, I think when we get to the steeper gradient, we'll see the climbers start to kick in and attack again, because they've seen now, I think, the weakness in Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano and, of course, Isidro Nozal.
Well, Nozal is still at the front of the main group there, just behind Michael Rasmussen and Luis Perez. Now they're starting to really close the gap down on Rasmussen. He's making a solid tempo. We're going to see what the time gap is. It's staying about the same. Rasmussen having a great day, perhaps the greatest day of his professional career as a road racer. He is a former world champion mountain biking, and as I know very well from racing a few years on the mountain bike circuit, there are some very steep, difficult climbs out on that cross-country event. And here is the peloton. They've sensed the danger with the Beltran being up the road, and the Once team doing everything in their power to limit the losses. We'll have to see if Roberto Heras, when that juncture is made, can attack himself, do the counterattack there. Big chase now coming from the Once team. It's the last domestique out on the road. That might be Jose Azevedo. Nozal is behind, and Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. You can see him in the blue jersey just on the shoulder there of his Once teammates. Here we see Perez and Beltran trying to close the gap to Michael Rasmussen, who's having a great day. An incredible effort he put in with Aitor Osa to stay away from the field after they had caught the breakaway that he was on the slopes of the Obis with Roberto Heras. You can bet that that was a furious chase up to Heras, probably the most fancied of all the GC contenders. We'll just have to see how hard, how tough that this Once team is. They have one guy left in front of Isidro Nozal and Igor Gonzalez chasing this man who is just in front of Manuel Beltran and Luis Perez.
Well, I have to say that that is a very large chase group, and indicating there are a lot of riders in this race now finding they're equal on strength, and it might be they're going to have to use different tactics to break one another as this race goes on around Spain. We're just getting to the steep kick on the graphic here as we climb the last few kilometres of the race, the last 5 kilometres to the summit, and Rasmussen has the best shot, but he's going to have to really survive. It's going to get pretty hard shortly, and there's a lot of infighting to be done back in that main field.
There certainly is. When he does get to the steep part around about here, it kicks up to 10%, and it stays like that almost all the way to the summit. I think right now he'll be wondering, why have I done this? But he's doing this because he wants to try and win a stage of the Vuelta a Espana. They're just going through the small town here of Courtrai, and that's just inside of 7 kilometers to go to the finish. These two riders are trying to pull themselves up to this lone leader, but if they do get caught, I'm fairly certain we'll see some very rapid counterattacks coming. We can never discount Manuel Beltran, because since he turned professional many years ago, he's always put in high performances at the Tour de France. The first year he rode the Tour back in 1997, he finished 14th overall, and this year he actually finished 14th overall despite working very hard for Lance Armstrong.
So what you're saying is he hasn't improved?
I'm saying that he's a kind of rider who has got the ability to ride high in the overall classification. I think this year he's got the possibility of actually doing a lot better than that, and maybe finishing in the top 3 when this race gets to Madrid.
I think, yes, he could even win it if things have to go his way, but Heras is still the designated team leader of US Postal, but they have certainly a very good bike rider sitting in the wings there. Now they'll try to encourage Rasmussen from the team car as they try to keep him going. These two are just making progress, but they're not closing down yet as there's an attack here. Now, is that Richard Virenque?
Looks like Kurt van der Wouwer, the Belgian rider on the quick-step team. He's a very good climber, rode very well in the Tour de France over the last couple of years, and he's moved off the front as they start the steep part of this climb where it kicks in at around about 10%.
Well, if we had been recalling the fireworks on the obese climb, it was this man who started that all out. Kurt van der Wouwer having a good day, saw that the chase to Heras was going to be very, very dramatic from the Once team, so he backed off, I think, and now he's re-accelerated on the steeper part to the finish, just about 5.5 Ks to go to the end of this bike race. He's trying to get across to Beltran and Luis Perez, but everybody at this point is chasing Michael Rasmussen, the ex-mountain bike world champion on the Rabobank team. He would go a long way in reversing the fortunes of the Rabobank team that have been falling slightly as of late. They're going to have a big meeting this week after the Vuelta to see exactly what's going on with the racers on the Rabobank team, but they may not have to if Rasmussen can come up with a stage win. And there he is on the upper left-hand corner of your screen, the very first man on the road being chased by Luis Perez and Manuel Beltran.
And then by Kurt van der Wouwer, a man who is celebrating his 32nd birthday in just 12 days' time. And he hasn't won a race since 1999. But there's always a chance he could change that right now. He's got to catch the 3 riders in front. There's the peloton in the bottom corner of our mosaic. And this race now is all uphill as they continue towards the finish. Michael Rasmussen of Denmark, ex-mountain biker, in his favourite terrain, but can he stay there? We'll take a break, come back and join him with the finish with us.
Isn't life a beach? That it is. So come hit the coolest coast, OLN style. Join Beach Ambush as we travel to the country's best beaches to give away gobs of cash and prizes.
But wait, there's more.
All we ask is that 6 unsuspecting peeps do some of the craziest feats in the sand.
My job is killer. Here we go. Blue wins it.
Beach Ambush, going to Wrightsville, North Carolina, Sunday at 9:30, only on the Outdoor Life Network. Out you go.
And welcome back. This very select group that was about 25 strong is thinning out rather rapidly now on the climb up to the finish. There's been an attack by Roberto Heras. He has gone back into the peloton, but you will notice the golden jersey has disappeared from the group.
Well, Isidro Nozal had put an awful lot of effort into this bike race here this afternoon, and I think he was the sacrificial lamb for Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano is just in about 3rd position there. Looked like Aitor Gonzalez was going off the back of the group as well. Felix Cardenas, I think, has got fire ants in his legs because he is attacking at every possible opportunity.
We're just seeing here if we can catch a glimpse of the golden jersey, but it seems now that he has completely unhooked from the back of that group and is now in real danger of losing his lead, even if it goes only to his teammate Gonzalez de Galdeano, who's still in that group down there. But more importantly, Beltran is still ahead with Luis Perez, and he's looking now to try and get the time gap that will give him the race lead, because remember, there are no time bonuses in the Tour of Spain.
Well, if Isidro Nozal gets completely blown away here this afternoon, all Beltran has to do is finish 15 seconds ahead of Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano to try and get himself that lead. Here is the golden jersey right now, and you can see, I think, Bob By is peddling action that the lights have gone out.
Very labored motion here now. He has to conserve 2.5 minutes to Gonzalez de Galdeano and a few less than that, excuse me, to Manuel Beltran. I don't think he's going to do it. If he does do it, his days are numbered in the golden jersey as race leader. But Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano has now come forward. He's going to try to conserve the jersey for the team. He does need to close some time up to Manuel Beltran, or the U.S. Postal team rider will get the golden jersey. This is a very exciting bike race. You can see by his face, he's ridden a fantastic Tour of Spain, and maybe now his quotes about going at a snail's pace are going to come true, but he has done a great Tour of Spain. He did an incredible ride for Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. Here's a Banesto rider attacking at the front there, just off the front of the Roberto Heras and de Galdeano group.
Well, I honestly feel that Nozal has ridden a real race leaders tour today. He didn't ride it for himself, quite clearly. He was riding for Gonzalez de Galdeano. He is up there. We've got just 3 kilometres to go to the finish now, and the battle is on. The field are slowly winding everybody in except Rasmussen.
Well, there's the group there with Roberto Heras and Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. They're pulling themselves up here to Aitor Osa, who was actually in the leading group just a few moments ago. He's about to get picked up by this group, and looking there you can see the blue jersey of Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. He probably expects this afternoon that he's going to write himself in the record books as the new leader of this bike race. In fact, there's been a change there because that was Unai Osa going off the front of the group.
So Unai going away. There's 10 in the group down there. This is Oscar Sevilla, and he's coming up. He's been joined by Perez, but is that the leader up there, Rasmussen, or is it Osa we've lost track of? I think it's Rasmussen, isn't it?
Well, I think, in fact, Rasmussen's just a little bit further up the front here. We've got to get Sevilla across to the group of Manuel Beltran, because the race situation at the moment is one lone leader. The lone leader is Michael Rasmussen. Two chasers. The two chasers are, of course, Beltran and Luis Perez, and we can see a lot more riders being put into difficulty here right now. That group there, just about to take the hairpin, is the group of Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano and Roberto Heras. We're at the steepest part of the climb here right now, just going inside of 3 kilometers to go, and we're kicking up still at around about an average gradient of 10%.
Well, this is a real horrible climb now, because the riders have raced so hard. Every attack looked like being the last one, but they fought the way back. Vladimiro Belli on the frontier, Gonzalez de Galdeano, and right behind him Roberto Heras. Frigo is there as well. This is a very select group of some 9 riders, but there's still a chance of a change, and it might go the way of Beltran.
Well, Roberto Heras tried everything today to get away from the main field on the slopes of the Col de l'Aubisque, and he keeps looking over his shoulder. He's probably still feeling a little bit itchy. He wants to try and put some time between himself and Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. And a little bit further back, we can see 1 or 2 riders in serious difficulty here right now.
Second, I think.
They really are starting to split the race. This is the group just behind the group of the leader of the bike race, I think by the end of tonight, Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano.
Well, there are some tired legs now on this climb. It is a very irregular race right now. Everybody throwing in their 10 pennyworth, and all of a sudden they are being rejected. Ico Flores is there. Alberto Gonzalez. There is Aitor Gonzalez here, setting the pace. He's had his moments today, but it hasn't really worked out, and now it looks as though he's paying the price as he's drifting away from the front of the action. And this rider, content with just looking after his own pace, and it's up to them to catch him if they can. And this slowly but surely he can tick off the kilometres.
Well, he's coming under the banner indicating 2 kilometres to go right now, and his pedalling action is nice and fluid. It doesn't look like a man who's beginning to weaken at all as we go back and have a check to see just exactly who is in this group here. Just at the back there is Leonardo Pipoli. In front of him in the white jersey, Dario Frigo. A bit further forward, Roberto Heras. He must be a little bit frustrated, I think, Bob, by the fact that he put in a fine attack here this afternoon. He thought he'd blown the race to pieces, but Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano, like a true leader of a team, never actually panicked. He allowed the attack to form and used his team to pull himself back into contention.
De Galdeano's doing a fabulous ride right now. I don't think we've seen Manuel Beltran come back, and I think that's what Roberto Heras is doing right now, playing the team game. He doesn't want to attack if he cannot get away from De Galdeano, because if Beltran has 15 seconds or more, he will get the jersey from Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano, who now is going to have to start making a tempo, as hard of a tempo as he's capable of, and try to close the gap down to Beltran.
This is the second group on the road at 55 seconds. That's the group which contains Manuel Beltran and Luis Perez. They've been joined by a third rider as well in that group. So they are still not really making inroads at all into the advantage of the man who leads this bike race, Michael Rasmussen. The next lone rider you can see a bit further down there is Oscar Sevilla, and then the group containing the majority of the contenders. But what's going to be important at the finish line right now this afternoon is the time that is being lost by Isidro Nozal.
And whether he will lose all of his conserved 2:27 to his teammate Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano. And I've got a feeling he's already lost it down there, you know, because he looked as though he was slowing right down at the moment.
Well, in fact, if the race were finished as it was right now, we do see a big loss by Isidro Nozal. The man who will be the leader at the end of the day is Manuel Beltran, because there was about 28 seconds between Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano's group and Manuel Beltran on the road. But the race is still 1.5 kilometers away from the summit.
What a fantastic ride by Michael Rasmussen. You can see there's hardly any fatigue, it seems, in his legs at this moment. He only has about a kilometer to go. He'll get the red flag in a moment. It's a flatter part. There it is. You can just see it in the distance. He can see that too. He knows he has a minute to conserve. Michael Rasmussen is doing a fabulous ride right now, and he is going flat out to the finish line. What a great ride by this Danish ex-mountain bike racer. Great to see Michael Rasmussen, a man I used to race against in the dirt, having a fabulous day out on the roads. We're in France, but it is the Tour of Spain. A great stage win for Rasmussen and the flagging fortunes of the Rabobank team.
Well, in fairness, you know, he started out life as a road racing cyclist, Michael Rasmussen, because he came in with a third place in the World Junior Championships in '92 and followed that up a year later with a fourth place in the World Under-23 Championships. Then he went over to mountain biking. I remember, in fact, he finished fourth in the old mountain bike four-day race, the Tour of Hawaii, when he won 2 stages of that back in 1997, and I was on the island at the time, and probably the last time I spoke to him, come to think of it. And now he's here, back to the road, and he's only won 1 race since he made his comeback to the road, and that was a stage of the Tour of Burgos last year.
This is the second group on the road we're looking at right now. They're still hovering around about 1 minute behind Michael Rasmussen. Felix Cardenas is in the group with Manuel Beltran, and they're the big figure of Luis Perez. These men right now are changing the overall classification, because if Manuel Beltran can finish 15 seconds ahead of Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano, then he will be the new leader of the bike race at the end of today, because I have a feeling, Bob, that Isidro Nozal is going to lose himself a lot more than the 2.5 minutes he had at the start of the day. But look at this.
Well, that's a ripper from Unai Osa. He finally has just scorched away. We've swung very rightly up to the finishing line, though, to welcome the Danish rider. Then the clocks will start when Beltran crosses the line to see if he's got the next golden jersey of this race, and the first time it will have passed to a team other than Once. But this rider, Michael Rasmussen, must feel, he doesn't look it, but he must feel fantastic inside. This has been an outstanding, well-taken victory. What a strong display this has been, with the Spanish police operating on French soil here now. As he comes up towards the line, a good chance to look over his shoulders. It's a victory and a nice wave to the crowd. And this is a serious road race win now for Michael Rasmussen, 29 years of age.
Remarkable to see these mountain bikers switching across to the road, and that was certainly a brave move by him. We would have expected Aitor Osa to be the favourite in the 2-man breakaway, but this man has showed us that mountain bikers, Bob, can ride the road very well. This is important right now. Manuel Beltran is chasing there after Cardenas. Cardenas is second on the road. It's important for him to get as much time as possible. Cardenas is going to get a second place for him and a lot of King of the Mountains points, but the clock is important for the man in second place in the blue jersey, Tricky Beltran.
Well, look at the desperation and the grimace on Beltran's face. He knows he needs 15 seconds from De Galdiano, as well as 2 minutes, 30 seconds plus. He is giving it everything. You can see it on his face to Isidro Nozal, the erstwhile leader at the moment. I think we're going to see Nozal come in very far down the road, but it's going to be close between both of those riders to see whether or not the U.S. Postal Man will get the jersey. Here comes Cardenas for second place. Great ride by Cardenas and huge mountain points. But look at Beltran sprinting all the way to the line. We're going to stop the clock at about 59 seconds for him and now start counting it down to De Galdiano and Isidro Nozal.
So Beltran at 59 seconds on the clock. Perez comes in now. Now the clock will really start. 15 seconds, that's gone by. As now Frigo comes up towards the line as well. We're looking for the gold jersey, and we're looking for the time of 2:27. Frigo is in as the riders clear the round. This is the end of this big group now. And the golden jersey not yet in sight, and he won't be, because there's Haras coming in on the left of our picture. And here comes Gonzalez de Galdiano, so he is not going to be the leader. Beltran is still in the golden jersey, but 2:27, 3:26 is what we're looking for on the clock at the moment.
3:26 is what we need to see when we come up to the line for the golden jersey of Isidro Nozal. There's Vladimiro Belli, Leonardo Pipoli coming in right now, and a little bit further down that will be Inigo Cuesta. But right now what we're doing is looking at the clock. It's 2 minutes since the leader crossed the finishing line. And Flores coming up towards the line right now, but everybody is looking for the golden jersey, which is on the shoulders right now of Isidro Nozal. It's more than likely, I would say, Phil, going to swap across to Manuel Beltran tonight.
3:25, 3:26, that's what the clock must say. There's no time bonuses in the Vuelta, and it's all down to real time. And these riders now are looking for a new leader of the Tour. We've had 3 already. There's Sevilla come in at 2:30, and he might do it. Here he comes, fighting his way home, and he deserves to do it. He's ridden a wonderful race today. I think he's going to make it, you know. He's still inside 1 minute to the line. He's easily going to keep his jersey. Welcome to the podium, Isidro, because he's still in that golden jersey.
Well, I don't think we would have expected that, Phil. Look at the face on this man. He has been to the edge of purgatory and come back, and he's kept himself in the lead. I don't think he will believe that at all. But it's one more day in the golden jersey for that man, Isidro Nozal, after working like a Trojan for his teammate González de Galdeano.
The arrival here of Jose Gutierrez. He's also done a reasonably good ride up there today. They're going to be coming in for a long time yet. Here is the man who won the day, Michael Rasmussen. And at the end of all of the drama, we don't think there is a change overall. We'll find out, though, when we come back after this break. Don't go too far away. And welcome back. Well, we've just seen a dramatic finish there, haven't we? What a battle, though, by the man who won this, kept his golden jersey, Nozal, Paul. That was a tremendous ride.
Absolutely superb ride by that man, you know, because I thought he was going to completely crack on the final kilometres of that slope. But you know what? He wanted to keep the golden jersey on his shoulders for just one more day if he can, because after all, Bob, he did sacrifice an awful lot of energy for Igor González de Galdeano.
He produced more watts today than I've produced in the last 15 years of bike riding. Unbelievable ride by Isidro Nozal.
So, the stage, though, won by the ex-mountain biker, Michael Rasmussen, 54 seconds ahead of Felix Cardenas, 58 in front of Manuel Beltran, who almost got the race lead, a minute 10 over Luis Perez, who attacked on all of the climbs today, and Aitor Oza did well to salvage 5th place out of the day. He came in also at a minute and 10 seconds. The mountain biker, 29 years of age, Michael Rasmussen, his second ever road racing win and his best by far here. A stage for him now, and not just a stage in the Tour of Spain, but one of the prestigious mountain stages.
Oh, when you win a mountain stage in any of the major tours, you can put that without any worry at all onto your pedigree, because it's an incredible thing. I've never been that close to anything like that myself, but I know Dag Otto Lauritsen, who was never a great climber on the 7-Eleven team, it was one of the greatest moments of his career, I would say, Bob, to win a mountain stage like this in any race.
In Toulouse-Ardiden, that was a great ride by Dag Otto, and it has stuck with him his whole life. He dreamed about it growing up, racing for a French team. It came true in the Tour de France. Michael Rasmussen integrating the breakaway with Eras. After a desperate chase from Once to Eras, he got back off the front with Aitor Oza, dropped Oza like a bad habit, and then soloed all the way to the finish. He really deserved to win this. What a great ride by Rasmussen.
Just waving at the crowd there, making sure nobody was coming up. Well, they weren't. They were 54 seconds behind the first man up, Cardenas, who also had a magnificent day out, by the way, and will keep his lead in the King of the Mountains. As we look out across the mountains here, waiting for the presentations, we're looking there now at the result of the stage. 55 seconds they're now saying it was to Cardenas at the moment. Well, if your picture's gone to black, it means that we've lost the pictures again from up on the mountain tops, which we're rather sad about, especially as we're now waiting for them to come back. And there's the stage result confirmed. Beltran, Perez and Aitor Oza, they're the riders now who are coming through in the top places, but of course overall we've calculated that we have got Nozal still in the race lead by about 40 odd seconds from Manuel Beltran, which unofficial I hasten to add, and González de Galdeano probably slipped down to third, Paul.
And I would expect to see Roberto Heras has probably climbed up into 4th place as well. But I tell you one thing, the story of the day really on this stage is this man here, Michael Rasmussen. To move across from one discipline in the sport to another and be successful like this man was today on a mountain stage really is a phenomenal performance. And he will remember his ride this afternoon for many, many years to come, because it's fine being the champion of the world at mountain bike racing, but I tell you what, to win at the summit of a mountain in one of the grand tours is really very, very special.
All right, well, let's have a look at the route the riders face tomorrow, I think, because after today's stage, which is the first day in the Pyrenees, we're now going to stay here for a second day in the mountains, and those who have tried a little bit too hard today might find they pay the heavy price tomorrow. We move on from Cotteret, and we come away from French soil as we go towards the Plat de Berret, and on towards Andorra, our next visit on the race route, and that's a nasty. The Col de Portillon, the Col de Peyresourde, and the stepping stone is the Col d'Espana. Now, we're not live at weekends, as you know, so tomorrow we will bring you same-day coverage between 3 and 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time as we complete the stage tomorrow of 166 kilometres. Quite a few riders dropped out today, including Frank van den Broeke, which was something of a surprise. He's not really enjoyed his season since riding well right out in the early start of the year. Oscar Sevilla here tried today. Maybe he is coming back. But you know, there's still no real indication as to who is going to be the dominant man in this tour as it goes on. Even today, Nozal rode brilliantly as a race leader, and he's held on to lead for another day. He's now held the golden jersey for 4 days. He still believes that the man it will eventually pass to will be his teammate, González de Galdeano, but I suggest if you ask Johan Bruneel that, he'll tell you rubbish. It's going to probably go to either this rider here, Roberto Heras, or indeed Manuel Beltran, who certainly was the star of the climbs today. Unfortunately, we can't show you the presentations because our pictures gave up at the very last minute all around Europe. It's been another bit of a blackout there. But don't forget, keep up to date. Visit us online at olntv.com and stay with us. The weekend then, same day coverage tomorrow.